Hey Morton, follow us on Instagram at Hey Morton and YouTube at Hey Morton. This is pretty cool. A friend of ours is dropping by who has a huge YouTube channel. It's called 74 Gear. He's a 747 pilot. His name's Kelsey Hughes. Thank you for coming, Kels.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to be back.
It's really fun to have you on the show because you are a 747 pilot who flies around the world. And I think anybody who has any question about aviation whatsoever would find you as a credible resource. On your channel, you talk about a lot of stuff in aviation that people would be like confused about. Like here's one. Why is a plane making a loud noise when it takes off? I think that frightens so many people who are afraid of flying.
Why does it make a loud noise when it takes off?
You hear bonk. You hear like all these sounds within the first like you hear clunks and beeps and you're like, what's happening?
Yeah, you know, the thing that actually I think surprises most people is when you're taking off and the engines pull back a little bit when you get to like 1,000 feet or 3,000 feet.
Yeah.
Because you think you're going max blast and it's full power to leave. But a lot of times the engines are actually on a reduced thrust to take off. And it's just to preserve the engine. So you're not going 100%. The engines are taking off at maybe like 70% or 80%. So it's crazy. A lot of people don't know that. So once you get up to 1,000 or 3,000 feet, it kind of depends on where you're at. The actual engines actually slow down even more because you don't need all that power and you don't want to have – it's like driving your car around at like the red RPMs. If you kept doing that, your engine would die, right?
Right.
So they keep it back down so it's not working as hard.
So you guys shift it into like third. And then
we actually, it's weird. We just program this thing into our computer, and then the engine goes, okay, so we're going to go at 70% power, whatever it is, and then it goes.
That's a good question. How much of you flying is you actually like with the stick going wee-hoo, wee-hoo, and you actually like going, okay, the computer's got this?
Well, there's not a lot of wee-woo as we're flying around. But
I've seen YouTube videos of it on your channel.
Yeah.
By the way, we should shout out your channel again. It's 74 Gear. Follow on YouTube and Instagram. 74 the numbers 74 and then the word gear.
Yeah. So it depends. So some pilots will take off and they'll hand fly the plane through 10,000 feet. Some will take it all the way up until cruise, but I'd say the average maybe 3,000-4,000 feet.
Why would one elect to do it all the way to 10,000 if a computer would do it for you?
Just keep your skills proficient.
Oh.
So, you know, the takeoff is really there's not as much going on as a landing. So we take off, and once you get to, depends on the plane, but 200, 300 feet, something like that, you're able to engage the autopilot. Some guys will, if you're on in some areas you have a very complicated departure where you have to fly a very specific route because of noise or buildings or whatever. So on those, a lot of times guys will elect to engage the autopilot just because it has to be very precise. And if you're not precise, then the controllers will say like something to you. You don't want that.
And is it cuss words?
It's definitely not cuss words. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Sometimes you'll be on an airplane and you'll see another airplane in the sky. And and I think a lot of people go, oh my God, what's going to happen? Like, is that good or bad? What should somebody who doesn't fly know about that?
So I actually had a video I put on Instagram a long time ago was another 747 going right over the top of us. And we were maybe at 36,000 feet and they were at 37,000 feet.
Whoa.
Wow.
So 1,000 feet separation, it depends on where you're at in the world, right? But if you're in a controlled airspace, like let's say over the U.S., where they have really good radar, they have something set up so that way you can fly 1,000 feet right over each other. So it's a reduce vertical separation. So it's, they keep it, they have everything set up in a way so if that plane were to make a mistake and accidentally come on to your altitude, there's something in their plane telling them to climb and something in our plane telling us to descend. And so those planes are talking to each other. So you have air traffic control looking, you have directions that you fly when you're going west or east, you fly at different altitudes. So there's that, and then you have something in the planes where the planes are talking to each other. So there's a lot of safety measures.
When you're in a plane, like a commercial plane, if someone's flying to, like, say you're flying to Hawaii, is there someone looking at that plane on a screen somewhere all the time?
Yeah, so you have air traffic control looking. You have the people at that airline. There's somebody that's watching that flight.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
So you guys have your own person going, hey, stop wee-woo.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of wee-wooing happening.
You're making a zigzag line on the screen. That's not good.
They have there's cases where, like, for example, we have a lot of our engines are from General Electric. So there's been cases where General Electric has all these parameters set up for the engines that they actually call the airline and say, hey, you need to shut down this engine in flight right now. So you might be crossing the ocean and you'll get a message that says, hey, shut down engine number 1. And that's to prevent it from being a worse situation. So they have an algorithm that checks everything to see, hey, this is a high-risk engine, and if you're over the ocean, then shut down 1. Now, we got 4 engines, so, flying on 3 is not a huge deal. So
yeah. Could you fly on 1 engine on a 747?
No.
It wouldn't do it.
I mean, you'd fly forward, but you're not going anywhere far. We actually do training where we do a landing on 2 engines. So it's part of our training. We take off with an engine failure right as we take off. And so, like that United flight that had the engine failure.
Right.
Yeah, it was over Denver, right?
It was over Denver, and they had they didn't have it break right on takeoff. They had it once they were climbing out, right? But that's something that we train for all the time. Every 6 months, usually, or a year, we're in there training for that scenario of the worst scenario, which is like right on takeoff. That's the most dangerous time. They were on climb out. So we do on the 7-4, we'll take off, and we'll have 1 engine fail right there at takeoff. Then you're coming into land, and for whatever reason you can't land, you take off again, and then they fail another engine. So now you're on 2 engines, and you got to fly around on 2 engines, and it's 2 engines on one side. So you got 2 on your right working and none on your left working. So it's the most difficult that it could be, and then you come in and land on just 2 engines. So
and you're doing that in a simulator.
Yeah, not the real plane. Yeah.
I was about to ask, I don't know if it's top secret, but where are these trainings happening?
They have,
what are we just
Where are these trainings happening?
Usually they're at airports or near airports. You'll see these huge buildings. These simulators are massive. The simulators are probably like the size of this room.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this room's probably about 20 feet by 13 feet, 14 feet.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
massive. So the whole flight deck, all the buttons, everything is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have these computer screens in front of you, and then you have a guy who's sitting behind you who's working all these anomalies, like making you have an engine failure, making this problem, doing all these things, so that way you're having to sort it out. So
Do they
those guys,
put like a skunk in the cockpit?
Well,
Like,
no,
"Skunk!"
so that guy that's back there, he's not telling you what's going to happen. So you
Right.
just take off, and it's like, oh, now you have this failure, or you have this thing. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
Ejection seat. You're like, no, not ejection.
Do you need extras? Can people just show up as an extra, be the annoying passenger or be the?
I don't think passengers are part of it. I think it's just the cockpit. You want to be back
What
there
if
like,
you have a take?
is this the bathroom? Where's the bathroom?
I didn't
Could
get my
you
Bloody
show me?
Mary.
It's funny. When I used to fly passengers all the time, people would come up because you have that bathroom right there near the flight deck,
Yeah.
and they'll walk up into the flight deck and then just kind of look around at everything, looking for the bathroom. I've had that happen before, and I turn around and I go, well, you can go to the bathroom up here, but it's going to get really awkward. And they're just they don't know what to do. It's like,
You just made it worse.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why. But I'll be looking at your junk. Eye level. So don't. People, speaking of the bathroom, this is a crude question, but that toilet,
Yeah.
when you flush it, people always think, oh, just a little hole opens up on the bottom of the plane and everything flies out.
I know. I don't know why people. I saw a TikTok of a guy that said that. He goes, when you hit that button, it just shoots out. I'm like, what? No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't it stain the bottom of the plane? Wouldn't you have a giant brown stain on the bottom of your
Not
plane
only
at
that, but
speed?
what? If you're coming in, you're flying over somewhere. Now you're just flying, massive poops flying out of the sky at you. No, I mean that's not how it works.
Maybe massive for you. I don't know if it's a thing. Here's the question, though. You do hear people go, a giant chunk of frozen crap came through my living room. So what's that from?
All right, so all that stuff when you go to the bathroom goes into a tank, and that tank has blue juice. We call it blue juice, but it's all this. I don't know what it's made of.
Flushers
But
2000.
it's this blue juice that's in there, and then it just gets hold in that reservoir until you land. Then someone goes and hooks up to it and takes it out, which is a braver job than I would ever want to do. Yeah,
You'd rather land on 2 engines.
yeah, I'd rather land on 2 engines every single day than do that. They have a face mask and all this stuff. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, though, then what do you think that is that's flying through people's homes? Because they'll go, it's a chunk of frozen waste material.
So if you were to have that tank were to leak,
okay.
yeah, that's what it'd be.
It could build up a piece of ice on the back.
Exactly. Because
Yeah.
outside, it's negative 40, 50, 60 degrees. So it's very
Yeah.
cold. So if there was a break in the tank and that tank kept leaking from inside the plane, outside it's just going to keep adding to that icicle until it gets so heavy, or you start descending and then it gets warm, it just falls off. So
Why do I just feel like that would be the best prank takeover and just let
prank?
it all go in air? I'm sorry.
Be a
I
meteor
would have
shower
those
or what?
urges if I was a pilot. That's why I'm not. Like,
Well, we don't have a switch like a poop switch where we hit it and it just starts ejecting everything. That's not how it works.
Open the gate.
All right, here. Circle over Bob's house. We're going to give him the old poop unicorn.
Bombs away. Bombs away.
The chocolate unicorn's coming in. Hold on. Oh, I missed. Oh, I hit a Chick-fil-A. Uh-oh.
We got to double back.
We got to write a report. Blame it on United or whoever. Wow. As you're in that plane, I saw a report once that because of depressurization of a plane that somebody got, you hear, sucked out a window. Are you going to get sucked out a window if, say, an engine part flies off and breaks a window? Would a passenger get sucked right out? Is that how it works? Or
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, there was that. I don't know if you're talking about the Southwest where they had the engine failure, that uncontrolled engine failure, and it actually broke part of the hull of the plane.
Yeah.
But that's such a freak accident to have something like that happen. You see it in the movies all the time. Yeah, I don't know if you know, in the Hollywood versus realities, you'll see them like open the door, and that's you're not going to be able to just open the door. We talked about that last time, Edina, but you can't just open
talk
the
about
door.
that for people that are hearing this for the first time. We're talking to my friend Kelsey Hughes. He has a YouTube channel, 74 Gear, and he's a 747 pilot. Like you're flying to Brazil tomorrow, right?
Yeah, a couple days I head out to Brazil.
Yeah, so he's around the world all the time on this plane. And last time you spoke about when you see in Hollywood someone's trying to open a door on a plane, it doesn't work like that.
Right. No. There's so much pressure inside the plane that there's even D-Rock, who's huge, wouldn't have the strength to open a door like that.
Because you would have to pull it in first.
You'd have to pull it in. Plus, you won't even. There's a lever there, so that got to unlock the door. So there's so much pressure on there. If you walk onto a plane, when you walk through, you'll see these big holes around these doors. So there's all these locks that are in place there.
Yeah, it's
So
like a vault.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like a vault
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So even if you unlocked it, the internal pressure of that plane pushing out would prevent
Well,
anybody
you
from
wouldn't even
pulling
be
it.
able to do the unlocking part. You wouldn't even be able to get that thing over.
Wow.
Really?
There's so much
Wow.
pressure that's in there. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a relief.
Yeah. So
Wow,
What,
was
were you
that
gonna
something?
try it?
Yeah.
You know what though? Anytime I see someone sit a little too close to a door, I always wonder, like, yeah, is this the next crazy person who's going to try and attempt? And like in that moment of attempting, are they going to be able to open the door?
What
Right.
airline
it's
are
good
you
to know.
flying on?
It's good to know
Ryanair.
it's not possible.
Ryanair, that's just the curtain that closes. They don't
Okay.
have a pressurized door.
Shower curtains.
But just know this, now when you're sitting there,
Yeah.
you can just swizzle your drink and be like, knock yourself out, bro. Knock
Yeah.
yourself out.
Go for it.
If you saw someone trying to open a door, obviously you would discourage them, but it wouldn't concern you.
no, I mean there was I think recently I want to say KLM somewhere in Europe. I think a guy tried to get up and go to the door and try to yank it, and I think people got him. But there's been people. It's funny for me when I see someone going up to the front part of the plane where the exit is, where the flight deck is, and there's a bathroom. They got all those things up there. And if I'm sitting in first class and I watch them go out there, I'm just like, this is going to be entertaining for me because I know if you don't fly very much, you're looking at all these doors and you're thinking like, which is the right one? But you see people head towards the door where there's the window outside, and I think, really? That's the door that you think it might be with the window on it? You know? That always surprises me. But the flight deck door, I get that. You might think it's forward. I don't know, but yeah. So
You know, we talk about Sully, and I know a lot of, if you watch Kelsey's YouTube channel, a lot of the videos that are on there are Hollywood versus reality, where he breaks down for you like, hey, this happened in this movie. It's just completely not true. Or this is actually factual. That movie Sully, and in fact, what he did, was that pretty remarkable? Because for people that don't know,
absolutely.
how remarkable?
It's
In
you know,
your terms, how could you put it for us?
So, I mean, it's one of those things where just he had a lot of things that were to his advantage, right? If he had, had been a cloudy day or something like that, it would have been a lot harder to do, right?
Right.
So it just happened to be on a clear day that they were able to see the river, to head to there, and to land. But even so, at the end of the day, you have to say, hey, the results, everybody lived. You know what I mean? You can't argue with that. And that's every time I break down a movie. I started this new series called Viral Debrief, where I take actual videos and I say, this is what's happening, like viral YouTube videos of people filming planes because they're always filming something. This is what happened, and this is why it happened. People will be critical of the person for, hey, he didn't do this right or he didn't do that right. I go, well, he landed and everybody got the plane safe. So at the end of the day, you can't argue with the results.
Right.
Yeah. The method, though.
Right, yeah.
How we got here.
Yeah, 3 bounces and a screech. Home! When you see these videos, because YouTube does put out a lot of videos like that
Yeah.
where it's planes like flying around. One of the things I know that scares people is when you're coming in for a landing and all of a sudden you hear the engines go, woo, and you fly off. I would be suspicious if I were in a plane that, oh, did we almost just crash? What happened? What is that?
When we're landing?
Yes.
Okay. No, so the engines are obviously pushing you forward, right? So that loud roar that you hear is actually us, the kind of the middle part of the engine, the cowling, that part opens up and it's actually slowing the plane down. So instead of the air going backwards and pushing you forward, it's pushing forward and helping you slow down.
Ah.
Okay.
So that's that loud roar you hear is that.
Okay, so it's redirecting the air forward like an air brake.
Correct. It's
Okay.
exactly right. Yeah. And that's not necessarily, it's not a necessity. You don't need to do that. But what it does is it helps the brakes on your tires. So it just
It lasts longer.
yeah, and keeps them not having to work as hard.
Now, when you don't actually land, but they hit the engines and speed them back up, and you fly past the airport and go back around, what's happening then?
Like on a go around? Like if you're
Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people. I've been on a plane, and you're coming in for landing, and all of a sudden it's like you're like, was there a skunk on the runway or what?
Okay,
Like,
yeah. So you have the right as a pilot to always do what's called a go around, which is if you're coming into land and for whatever reason it's unstable, there's another plane that's on the runway, something is wrong, you can go around, and they call it a no fault go around. So you don't have to explain to anybody in your company why you did it. So they made this safety measure in place for that reason. So if you came in and for whatever reason it didn't look good, you didn't feel good, whatever it is, you just go, oh no, we're going to go around. You hit
Have
a
you
button.
done that?
Yeah, I've done a go around. Not we had one time I was coming into Chicago, there was a guy who landed and he was just going so slow to get off the runway, and air traffic control was saying like, hurry up, get off the runway. And I could tell, I was like, there's no way that this guy's going to get off. I could just see how slow he was moving. And probably like maybe 500-600 feet off the ground, they just said go around. So up we went.
And so do you just power the engines as hard as you can? And
Well, not as hard as you can. So it depends on the plane that you're flying. On some planes, like you can just hit a button and the throttles go up.
oh, really? Just
yeah.
like, ding,
Boop,
and
yeah,
it's-
off we go. Yeah,
okay.
if you're hooked up on the autopilot and everything, which I usually tend to do, if we're coming into land and it's busy, until we're clear to land, I usually just let everything stay hooked up, autopilot and the auto throttle. So it will fly everything that you need. So if you do have to go around, you just hit one button, whoop, up it goes, and you don't have to. The machine's going to do it better, and you can monitor a machine better than you doing it, and you're doing it. And now this guy's having to do radio calls. It starts to get.
Can you explain why it's a little difficult
All
to
right.
descend into Las Vegas?
So I did part of my flight school in Vegas. I don't know if you know that, D-Rock. but
Nice.
Yeah, I did part of my.
Why would he know that?
I don't know. Why? Yeah.
Hey, you thought we were going to treat you like a brother in here? You're our good
This is
friend.
our friend Kelsey.
Yeah, it's our friend Kelsey.
Yeah.
Give him a hard time,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so Vegas, when you have a lot of hot sand, things like that, that's coming up, it creates a turbulent air, basically. It's the easiest way to explain it. So you just have these thermals. So when all that hot air that's coming up, it's just unstable air, really hot air like that. So
Is it worse later in the day because it's been hot all day, or is it early, or when's?
it's like when it's the hottest, it's the worst. So
Okay.
if you come into Vegas at nighttime, like evening or early in the morning, it's pretty smooth. But if you come in middle of the day, it's
like
bumpy.
2 p.m. It's
Oh.
going to be bumpy.
Exactly. Like I used to fly in South Texas all the time, and we were flying a small plane, and we were coming out of Houston, and we were flying to small places like Corpus Christi in that area, and it's 5,000 feet, and it's how hot it is down there,
Yeah.
and and we were in a small plane, and we were just getting pounded the whole way,
What's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen from the cockpit? And I don't mean like lunch. I mean like out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, lunch,
Oh,
yum.
look at that.
Yeah. So I have seen some really amazing things. Like I've seen the Northern Lights from the flight
Nice.
deck. That was really
Cool.
cool to
That's
see
cool.
from 30,000 whatever feet.
Did you see it like kind of the curvature of it like that?
Yeah,
Like
and
you
you
see
just
on.
see the green and everything, and you're just
Wow.
like, man, that's really cool. So we just
You're like,
wh-
is that Cat in the Hat's house?
and we'll just black out the flight deck and just so we can see it
Watch
really
from
well.
it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
awesome.
awesome.
Aw.
Yeah.
It wasn't like bright enough that I was like, I need to go run and grab a camera, but I could see it. Sometimes the camera doesn't catch it as well,
Yeah.
Right.
That's like trying to photograph the moon.
Yeah.
It never comes out well.
You're like, where is it?
A few years ago, they had that like once every 100 years, the huge moon, or I don't know if you remember, they had
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So I was flying on that night, and I remember seeing the moon come up over, and then it was just massive in the sky.
Wow.
That was really crazy to see. It was so big actually that I told the flight attendants, I said, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. So when we leave the flight deck, somebody else has to come in. Those are the rules. There always has to be at least 2 people up there in the flight deck. So I was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom because I wanted them to be able to see that too. So
Oh, that's cool.
nice.
yeah, so I left. So that was
Oh, so you can't just say, hey, come check this out?
No, sadly no. It used to be like that, but no.
It doesn't work like that anymore.
No, you can't.
Interesting.
They can't be up there for no reason.
Okay.
So they got to be up there for a reason.
How often are you flying commercial versus, I know you fly freight.
So we fly a lot of freight and passengers. It's mixed. It kind of depends on what I ask for. So like this month, there was an option to fly just passengers all month. It was going to be mostly military troops. And there was that, or it was to fly down to South America and do South America, like down to Brazil and that. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to Sao Paulo. That sounds better.
Can I go with you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
come on down.
right?
Yes, D-Rock. You can get the icicle off the back of the plane when it lands. Here, give me the pick.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you see in the future? What do you want to see in aviation in the future? Is it self-flying, airplanes? Or what do you see
Wait a
happening?
minute. Why would he ever want self-flying airplanes?
That's his job.
Wouldn't he be out of a job? Do you want
But that's what I'm
self-talking DJs in the future?
No, but I'm asking,
Do I think that'll happen? Yeah.
Do you think that's what's going to happen?
I think
do you
it will.
It's scary for you to think okay, what can happen in the future?
I think what it will start with, honestly, will be, this is just my opinion, it will start with cargo flying over water. It'll be like a LA to Hong Kong, something like that, where it's over water the whole time. So if there is a malfunction, that it'll just crash in the ocean. That's what it'll start with. But I think it's a long ways away because, I talked to some guys in the Air Force that run drones. And they do all the drone testing and stuff. They just don't have the security linkage in order to be able to safely control something from the ground. Because let's say you have me as a pilot on the ground that's controlling it. Well, if I'm controlling it, then someone else could also control it.
Right.
Right.
I see. Yeah.
That's the way they look at it. So I think it will eventually happen where there's enough security encryption for that to be the place. But I personally am not getting in a tube with 300 other people when there's nobody up there, right? Like
you wouldn't?
No, not on a commercial plane in the back. If I was up front, if they had it where the autopilot and it's gonna do the whole thing, and there's a pilot up there for when it does go wrong, sure, but not. I'm in the back and there's just a big window up there or something. No,
Yeah, that's bad.
I mean. Yeah, there's too many variables with flying, and like I said, if someone can control it from the ground, who's the good guy, then a bad guy could also do it. So
So that's why you need LifeLock. This whole thing is brought to you by LifeLock. No, I'm joking. Protect your life. Protect your luggage. LifeLock. When you are up there flying, do you grade yourself?
like your landings.
All of it. The flying itself is pretty basic, right? Once you're up, you're
yeah,
up.
once you're up, you're up. Once you're up, there's really not a lot of. It's just about maneuvering around weather or things like that. That's all that's happening there. You're judged as a pilot. 99% of what you're judged on by the general public is your landing. But there's so many other factors to it, right? Good decision making, the smooth ride that people didn't realize that you went around all this weather. On my way over here, I came over from Miami a couple days ago. On the way over, we were getting over Texas, and there was a large thunderstorm. There was a lot of turbulence. The girl sitting next to me was like, "What's happening? Why is this happening? This is so scary." And I was like, "All right, look." And they had the map of the plane up, and you could see that the plane had the original path, and it was actually going south on that path. And so I said, well, you see how that plane is turning south right now? Now I'm in uniform, right? So now I can see like all the people sitting next to me start like leaning in to like listen to what I'm saying because they're curious. But, I'm like, the pilots are just going around this weather. So they're going south. So even though it's bumpy right now, there's obviously a storm in front of us.
Could be worse.
Could be a lot worse. So you went around all this storm and you got to the other side. So there's times where I'm flying and we'll go around a big storm with passengers and they don't even know or care, right? They're just, to their expectation, they just want to get to where they want to be on time.
Yeah.
They don't, there's no like, man, that was amazing, because they don't necessarily know what you went around.
That's another thing people don't understand. If it takes me this long to fly this direction, why doesn't it take the same amount of time to go the same distance back? And it's because of winds, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Winds, weather, could be anything. But yeah, the winds are typically moving to the east.
Is it, now that we're talking to our friend Kelsey, he's a 747 pilot, flies around the world, has a YouTube channel, 74 Gear. You should watch it. A lot of myths are busted. What's the number one thing you think people don't understand about air travel that makes them nervous?
I think turbulence is the biggest thing that makes people nervous.
They think the plane's going to fall apart.
Just shatter, yeah. And the amount of testing that these airlines do, or that these manufacturers do for the turbulence, it's unreal. So I think we talked about it last time. When I'm flying passengers and we hit a bunch of turbulence, I slow the plane down to make it smoother for everybody. When we're flying freight, we're just like,
get through it.
Let's do it. I want to get to the hotel. So we just let it be bumpy. I mean, there's a limit. Obviously, we can't go above a certain speed. So like on the 7.4, we're flying pretty fast. So we can get up to about 90% of the speed of sound.
Wow.
That's how fast we fly that thing.
Wow.
So we don't
Dang.
typically fly it that fast, but we can get that fast. So
Oh my
we can
gosh.
really get across the ocean.
Is that
pretty
downhill going that fast?
No, that's just going straight.
Oh,
So
really?
it's fun, when
Yeah.
we're going across the ocean. So they have these different kind of like roads in the sky going across the ocean, the Atlantic, right? And they kind of stat the planes based off of the types of planes that you have. So you get across the ocean in the daytime, and if you're going across the Atlantic, you'll see other planes that are, slower than you, and you're just like, yeah, that's what's up, as you go across the ocean. Yeah.
You have a light way of flipping them off from the window. Like, get your telescope.
So it's fun when you're going across the ocean because they have you kind of side by side stacked
Mhm.
up as you're flying. So that's pretty cool.
Do you guys eat in the cockpit
Yeah,
and drink?
absolutely.
And you're not worried about tipping a cup over and going, uh-oh.
Well,
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a
That's
rule.
bad.
There's a rule that you're supposed to pass any liquids around the outside. There's little cup holders on the outside of our seats, so you're supposed to not put anything over the middle.
Oh, okay.
Does that always happen? No, like every other rule and any other.
Have
office.
Right.
pilots, not you, but have pilots spilled in there and been
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh,
there was a situation I think where they spilled some water in that middle console where there's all those buttons and they had some problems.
Ooh.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you could, if that were all to short out, now you may lose control surfaces of the plane, right? Or
You wouldn't. No, you wouldn't lose control surfaces, but you could lose some of the avionics, some of the different computers that are in there. At the end of the day, the plane's still going to fly fine. But if you're over the middle of the ocean and you do that, now you're like maybe your radios are out because those are all the radios are typically there in the
Okay.
middle. So
Mm.
Now, when you see pilots who are in a movie or whatever and they're flying and they're pulling so hard,
yeah,
I would think like power steering, like it's power steering on the plane, right?
every
Like-
plane's got hydraulics. The little planes don't, but every big plane has hydraulics. So I've seen tiny little frail people that are flying the 747. We're taking off close to 1 million pounds. So that's a lot of weight to get up in the air.
Yeah.
And people are like, is that really hard? Should I get student pilots like, should I start working out? I'm like, do you see how small I am? Like,
Should
I'm
I
not a
get
big
ripped?
guy. Yeah. I'm
It's
like,
arm and chest day,
yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
Just, pulling back on that stick. I saw in the movies. You see it. They're like all leaning back, like,
They're like,
oh, let's
do this. Yeah. I always make fun of it because I think it's funny because they're always like, these faces. And I'm like, you think that's what we're doing up there?
The
Like,
veins are popping out.
I hope we make it.
yeah. It's always, that's funny to me. The only thing that you do need is leg strength for if there's an engine failure because the rudder in the back of the plane, you do need to have some leg strength for that. So you don't
Okay.
want to do leg day before you're going to go do the simulator, then have that sex.
Interesting. Of all the airports you've been in, if somebody was going to go and world travel, where would you recommend they go just to see the airport? Like I know there's a cool TWA airport in New York.
I was just there a couple days or
Oh, you
a couple
were?
weeks ago. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
For everyone that doesn't know, TWA used to have their own terminal, and they've rebuilt the terminal. It's in New York at LaGuardia,
No, JFK.
JFK, and it looks like something out of the 60s, like exactly the 60s.
Yeah, it's got the
That's
Catch Me
awesome.
If You Can, the ramp, and all that stuff. I actually flew in there I was on a commercial flight. I flew in with LL Cool J.
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
LL Cool J was on the flight. Yeah. So, we came in Miami, Miami to JFK, and he was up there. And so he was on the ground in Miami taking pictures with everybody. On the flight, I saw him like, he's a big dude. Some of these actors and people you see him in real life and you're like, dude, you're tiny. But no, LL is a pretty big dude. But he was so polite to everybody on the ground in Miami. And we're in the air. I could see him, I was sitting just a couple rows back from him, super chill with everybody. And then when we landed in JFK, he got off the plane, and I thought he was just going to bolt just to go wherever he was going. But then on the ground, he was taking pictures with more people. On the ground in JFK, I'm like, dude, this guy's really grounded. Yeah.
That's cool.
I actually sent a tweet out like, just had LL Cool J on my flight, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So,
That's really cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
And would you say that's the coolest airport thing to see? Because a lot of people go to airports, they don't even think of it, but there's some pretty amazing airports.
the thing is, that's connected, I think, in like Terminal 6 or something like that. So that hotel there has some old TWA planes. It just got some kind of nostalgic stuff. You don't really see that too often because we were like America's a new country, right? But we don't have a lot of history, but we do with aviation. So aviation's kind of our old history.
Yeah.
So, JFK still got a lot of that history there. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Where do you think it's most beautiful to fly into? Like I know, like someone was telling me about Bolivia. If you fly into Bolivia, that it's very colorful as you fly in, and it's kind of high altitude and hard to fly in, so it's kind of weird.
Very high altitude
Yeah.
airport. I don't know. When you said that, what I thought of was Quito in Ecuador. when you come into Quito, it's also a high altitude airport. It's like 7,900 feet, so it's pretty. It's a lot higher than Denver, which I think Denver's a high airport. You come in, and it's in the airport is kind of in this big mountainous bowl. So you come in, you break out through the clouds, and you're in this huge green bowl of mountains. There's a lot of rain, obviously. It's on the equator. Yeah. So it's just green mountains everywhere you go. And when you break out, it's this bright green color. It's really cool to see. Wow. So Quito's a really cool place to fly.
Feels like Avatar.
Yeah, it's just, you see these, it's stuff that you just think, wow. From there, when you have that 270 degree view of everything, you really get a good view of everything.
That's
so.
Now this is, I don't know, it was a dumb question. I guess that's, D-Rock, you might be curious about this too. You always hear guys.
Because it's a dumb question? I don't understand.
It's probably a dumb question. You hear guys that go, oh, man, that stewardess or that flight attendant was so good looking, but I didn't ask her out. They don't go out with passengers. Do they go out with passengers?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I mean.
So that's a yes.
Yeah.
Shoot your shot.
Yes. How does this happen? How does it? But because to my thinking, if you're a young single girl and there's a good-looking guy on the plane and you know you're going to be in that city for 2 days, that's like a perfect setup for a date.
Kind of. I mean, think of it like this. If you went into a restaurant and you start kind of hitting on your server, it's kind of that's the way I look at it. Like, they're there, they're being polite to you, and they're being friendly with you, and they're being nice with you, but they're also doing their job, right? So you don't want to confuse the two. Yeah. So, like, when, obviously we land and we're on the way to the hotel and flight attendants are talking about this, that, or the other thing. So you'll hear, like, yeah, this guy gave me his number. And, so there's some people, like anywhere, some people are creepy about it. Some people are just like, cool, right? So.
Is it cool? What I think that's what I'm asking. Like, I wouldn't know. I'm a guy that would never make that move because I'd be too scared to get rejected.
Right.
And then have like 9 hours to go on the flight now. You're
You're like, dude, she just said thank you for flying. She didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Chill.
I wouldn't know what to write on the napkin. Like, listen, I'm not trying to do anything weird or scary. I'm not a terrorist. I just want your number. No. Can I have another napkin? I wouldn't even know what to write. Like, hey, here's my number, baby. Like, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't know either. That's not really.
So it does or doesn't happen?
It does happen. I've had girls that would tell me that the guys gave them their business card with their number on the back and call me, and a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I've talked to flight attendants where, they met a guy and they were talking and laughing and whatever, and they're like, hey, let's hang out. Just the same that you would have as if you went anywhere else to a restaurant. So I think it's kind of the equivalent of like asking your waitress for her number. Like, you really have to read the situation right. Like, she really wants to have this conversation, right?
A skill I was not born with.
Yeah.
So I'll just move on.
Yeah. I've had it happen where I'm flying as a passenger that I'll talk with flight attendants and I've gotten their numbers before. I've done that. But it's a little bit easier, right? Like, if I'm traveling in uniform, they know I'm a crew member.
Yeah, you got wings.
Right.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier because they're like, all right, well, we already know, like, you passed your FBI background check. You can't be that dangerous, So there's a commonality in our lifestyles. It's a pretty unique lifestyle when you're a crew member.
Have you ever really? What's the most unique thing?
Well, I mean, most people are going to work Monday through Friday, and they're doing the same. Like, we're working 3-4 days a week. I might be, I work 2 weeks straight, so I'm all over the globe. It's very different from most people. So I'm like 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off. So
it's so easy to probably blow off people you don't want to deal with because you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'd love to come over, but I'm going to be in Sao Paulo. We're talking to, by the way, Kelsey has a YouTube channel, 74 Gear, and he's a 747 pilot. As a 747 pilot, I was always suspicious. Like, the pilots are getting like some special burger or something. I'm back here eating fish, and they're getting like some super deluxe something.
Right.
Is that true, or how does it work?
No, it depends. So when I flew like your smaller regional planes, like your 70-seater jets, when you see those guys are getting no food at all. There's no food.
What?
Yeah.
Brown bag it or forget it.
It's brown bag it, or you'll see some pilot like run off the plane and they're going to go get food for the whole crew. So sometimes you'll see that.
Wow.
That's one thing. Or
if you see a guy putting a parachute on, they're over a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. So you'll see that, or we eat a lot of it. Like when I did that type of flying, we used to eat all the good snacks. So the first class will get these like nice fancy snacks. Yeah, I'd ravage through those, and then like the beef jerky, for like 3 months. No one ever saw beef jerky on the plane. That's because the pilots would eat it all. So.
That's funny. But so on a nice, let's say you're flying a 747 to Hong Kong from LA.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting the best food or whatever is on there. Do you even have a better menu or?
No, usually the crew is getting a variation of what's back there, and usually you aren't going to eat the same thing. So like you might get the chicken and I might get the beef or fish or something like that. So usually your crew won't eat the same thing. So that way, you know, in that hypothetical situation that the fish is bad, you're not incapacitated and I'm incapacitated.
So you have to negotiate that out?
Usually,
a little bit?
well, so when we're doing cargo, they just put a mix of food up there, and you don't get to ask. It's like, here's your meals, so which is fine. I mean, I grew up in a military family, so it was like, this is your meal. I don't get real, but some guys are real picky. Some guys bring their own food. I'm like, you got 2 weeks of food that you haul around? Like, no way.
Right.
So yeah, no, we don't get any.
But there's no super secret special meals for you guys.
No, we're not getting like.
If it's on a tray for me, it's on a tray for you.
Right, exactly.
And it comes the same? Like in a little plastic salad and a little cornbread?
So there's like a whole setup thing. So they'll heat up, like when we're doing passenger flying, the flight attendants will call back and say, hey, I'm ready to eat, and can you heat me up a meal? And they'll heat it up, and then they do the whole thing, and they bring the food up there, and that's it.
Huh.
Yeah.
And can you sleep on the planes?
We do. On the 747 we have like a full bunk area. We got bunks and everything. So it's pretty nice.
Put your junk in your bunk.
Absolutely. Like on the freighters, it's actually better because the bunks are separate rooms side by side. So you go walk through this door and you go right or left depending on the bunk you're going into, and you got a bunk and a bunch of space. On the passenger birds, they're in the same room but they're stacked. So you're one on top of the other, which is less nice because you're in the same room.
I would think that would be such a great way to sleep with the hum of that plane and kind of cozy. And
oh, yeah, dude.
At first, it was hard. I guess I was kind of new on the plane, but now it's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best. You go back there for like 3 hours. You know, if you're on a long flight, you might have like a 10-hour flight. You might get a 3-hour nap. You can go pound out a good 3-hour nap because you started early or whatever. That's great.
And you guys have a good bathroom and all that, or you're not like struggling in a tiny closet?
The bathroom is the same size bathroom that you guys typically right on. Same size. It's not like some.
Oh, really? So it's not like a shower in there and all
No,
that?
it's not like an Emirates A380 shower and all that stuff. No, it's the same size. On a freighter, it's the same size as the passenger bathroom.
Wow, so that's it? You got to wait to shower when you land?
Yeah, so you can imagine 4 dudes that are going to a plane knowing that there's not going to be a girl that they're going to see for 17 hours. Sometimes it doesn't smell good up there, right?
Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. How do you deal with jet lag?
So
is there a secret?
So that's a good question because it took me a while at first to figure it out, and you kind of just have to figure out your own body. And the problem is that unless you're doing that all the time, you don't know what works for you. That's the hardest thing, right? When your typical person that's traveling, it's like they might get jet lag twice in a year if they're traveling a lot, right? And so they don't know. For me, I drink a lot of water while I'm flying because you get dehydrated a lot when you fly because the air's so dry. So I drink a lot of water. That helps. I try to take a little bit of a nap, and then, for me, I don't know. My body's just accustomed to it. When I go to work, it's like work mode. All right, here we go. And
do all airports start to look a little bit the same?
No, not really.
Really? It never gets to like, where am I? I'm in Denver. All right. Where's the taxi? Get me to the hotel.
No, so for us, which is really sweet, we land and there's a handler there for us. So when we land, we walk off the plane. Then there's a guy there, and he walks us all the way to our van, takes us to the van, gets us in the van, and the van driver takes us straight to the hotel.
And you keep your luggage with you right there, right?
Yeah, man.
So,
nice.
I got my rollerboard. I got my bag with just camera equipment in it, and then I got my backpack, which has my. So when you're flying cargo, this is the best part. You can wear whatever you want once you get up in the cruise. So you're 15 hours in flight, like you could go roll out a onesie. You got a onesie, your headphones, and now you're going.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
You get to wear whatever you want. I mean, within reason, right? So
yeah, no unicorn ones.
No, yeah. There's been some guys that wear some weird stuff, and they, obviously get crap for it. But I have just a hoodie that I wear. I wear this hoodie when I fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating to me. Do you ever really have a sense of how gigantic the thing you're at the very tip of is when you're landing it, or can you ever really fully understand, like, wow, I'm flying 1,000,000 pounds of something?
It's like anything. It becomes normal now, right? When I walk up to it, it's normal. When I realize how big it is, I mean, there's a few times. One is when you land somewhere and you see people like taking pictures because you don't normally go to that place, and you see 30, 40 people outside taking pictures and selfies as you're taxiing, and you're like looking out the window and you see like all these people trying to take photos. That's fun, and that makes you realize how big the plane is. I see it more with the Dreamlifter. I don't know if I fly this modified 747 that we carry parts inside, and there's only 4 of those in the world. That is another one that so
Do you guys have like a Dreamlifter group on Facebook or something? You're like, because there can't be that many pilots for it, right? Or is it the same as any other?
So I mean, there's only 4 of them. There's not like a Facebook page, or maybe I haven't been invited to it. I don't know. Maybe there's I don't know.
What's up with that?
So that's a plane that when it goes somewhere, people are tagging me in it, like, because there's only 4 of them, so it'll be in a random. They're like, "Is this you? Is this you?" And I'm like, "No, that's not me." But that plane is really fun to fly. It's not as spacious though for us on the flight deck. The back is massive, but the front. So we were using that during COVID. We were transporting medical supplies and stuff like that because there was a lot of empty space in the belly.
Mm-hmm.
So we were moving medical supplies during COVID. There was a thing that Trump got worked out with Boeing to transport medical supplies because it was flying and moving. And right at that time, when COVID kicked off, it was crazy because the ships couldn't get into port, but the planes could. So we were going in, and just like the volume that needed to leave and move just exploded. So we had these planes, we had some extra space, so they started moving medical supplies that way.
That's cool.
Wow.
What's the one thing, we got to wrap up, what's the one thing you think you would tell just the average person getting on a plane? If they're afraid of flying, don't know about flying, don't understand.
I guess the biggest thing is you got to realize that the pilots that are up there aren't going to take off, and we have the right to refuse any flight if we don't feel that it's safe. And at the end of the day, we want to get on the ground as well. So we're not going to get on a plane and fly a plane unless we feel it's good. There's no blowback or anything like that. We say, hey, it's not good. We don't feel good about this. We're not flying. That's it. So we have the final say.
That's good. And you won't, there's no repercussion for that whatsoever.
No
pressure.
There's no like, you have to do this. I mean, there's obviously a push. Like the company wants this metal to move, right? They want it to move, but they can't. It's not like you're going to get fired if you don't move this metal, because if that were the case, then you'd have the FAA or any of the governing bodies would say like, hey, you're trying to get it has to be justifiable. It can't be like, I didn't get my snacks today, so I'm not taking this plane. Like, then you're in trouble, right? But if there's a logical reason, like, hey, this doesn't have this, and I don't feel comfortable to go across the ocean with this situation. Yeah, I that's the other thing. By the way, I was thinking about it. You asked me last time, why did pilots say like, right? You remember?
Yeah, I asked you this. I said, last time you were on the show, I said, why do pilots go, we're at 30,000 feet? Yeah.
Right, because we all do that, right?
All of them.
The last couple of years, I've been thinking about that just on and off. Why do we say that? It's crazy, right? And I came up with an answer. I think it's because when we're transmitting on the radio to air traffic control, if you're quiet, they think you've ended your transmission. So if you're making noise, no one is going to key up and talk over you, because it's only a one-way direction. It's not like this where we're all talking and sharing.
So all pilots have one channel they're all talking on at the same time or waiting their turn.
Right. So on that same frequency, you and maybe 40 other pilots are talking to one controller who's kind of coordinating everything.
Yeah.
So if you say something and then you just were quiet and thinking about the next thing you wanted to say, someone else would key up thinking you're done talking and say something. So by making that it's like, I'm not done saying the thing that I want to say. So that could be why we do it then when we're making the public announcements in the back, because that's
your habit.
A habit of doing it now. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I've been thinking about it for a while. Like, why do we say this? And that's the one that seemed logical to me.
Yeah, I could get that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for coming and joining us.
This is awesome.
He had to jump a plane from Miami to L.A., hop a train down here, slept overnight, came in, and has to get back up to L.A. to go to South America. So,
oh my gosh.
Sounds exotic, but it's hard work.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Yeah, we thank you. Watch his channel, 74 Gear, on YouTube. I think my favorite parts of all your series are the viral debrief where you show things happening and describe what's really going on, and also the Hollywood versus reality series is really great.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think it answers a lot of questions that people have, because 10 years ago, you wouldn't have access to an airline pilot to ask him those things, right?
Yeah.
And if he keeps this up, he's going to get fired. So watch it. Watch it. Should be hanging out with people like us. Yeah, you're a big deal. All right. Kelsey Hughes, thank you so much.
Guys.
It's 74 Gear on Instagram, on YouTube, and here on Hey Morton.